Yeah, so my next little section is super informal, like interrupt me, tell me to slow down or speed up or whatever. So I'm going to go over like some basics, data loading and that kind of stuff, and we'll see how far I get. But I thought I'd start by sort of showing you. So we talked to some point this week that ACT has 2 websites, which is rather annoying. And someday that won't be the case. So a lot of like leading up to this meeting, you were being directed to the actual ACT website, which is theactnetwork.com. It's a Google site. And this has a lot of like network information. There's a news page, we have a meeting page. So it's a good like, what's going on? What is the ACT network? You know, there's a background of how things started and where we came from and all that sort of good details. You know, we've got a meeting page. If I pull up this page, you'll get to see Rachel's face and then Chase's little bio and then some who, you know, got past awards. So it's a good place just to go for like all things that you might need to know. Then there's this awesome page, which a lot of you have seen this week, which is the data portal or Matos or Act Matos or, you know, kind of whatever you feel like calling it in that day. So, and this is where you're going to go for, you know, that file transfers, you know, between your projects and me, which is really all of this is. It's just a way to pass files to me. So even some of you I've told, why don't you just send me a Google Drive file and I'll just do it, because sometimes that's the fastest way to get it done, for both of us. So first I will start by showing you I'm not logged in. So as the general public, which if someone like grandma found this website, I'd be amazed at them. Really impressive grandma, but it's matos.asascience.com. And sometimes it's slow. So we're just going to do this live and hopefully it cooperates this week because I'm not cool like Joy and I couldn't get my videos to work. Yeah, so if you're just a public user, you're not logged in, you don't have account, this is what you get to see. So there's like some information about, you know, what is acoustic telemetry, how this stuff works. You get to pull up the list of all the projects that you can see is very extensive. You can view the user agreement, and then you can go look at a map, which this might take a while to load. But again, this is if you're not logged in, you're not a user. So this is only public access data. And when you load the map, it loads everything. So everything that is publicly available from the start. So there's a project in there that's public from 2004 to present day. And when you create a project, that is not the automated setting. Everything is locked down as the like initial setting. So there's some projects in here that people did elect to be public, like CERC's projects are public. There's, you know, some state level projects and a lot of NOAA level projects. And then you can very coarsely, you know, zoom in. So you can't really ever actually see receiver stations. If you were to go into one of the projects, regardless if it's public or not, you only get to see some of that project metadata. So you get to see who managed the project, what's the duration of the project, what kind of stuff is in that project, a little bit of an abstract. So again, you don't even get to see the actual raw data if it's public. So we will log in, and because I'm one of those people, the login page is also where you would go to create an account. And then when you create an account, that gets sort of passed to me to approve, to say, yes, this person can create an account. And then usually you get like an auto-generated email from me that says, yay, welcome, you're approved. Here's all the things that I want from you. Let's get started. So when you log in, this is not what you see. So this is the behind the scenes. This is all of the wonderful people that have been loading data in the last month or so. You can see Jeff's been hard at work. Yeah, so that's sort of my side of things. So we'll go back to the homepage. So yeah, again, when you're logged in, the landing page looks the same. Yeah, you'll never have this admin button. When you go to a project, you know, the project list is exactly the same, except now there's a add a new project button at the bottom. If you go to a project that you are added on as a user or your own project, and you open it, you won't have this delete button, but you will also you'll have edit project, project files, and data extraction files, which we'll come back to. And then you'll see some of the same information that you saw as like a public user. Again, you can always access the user agreement. We'll go back to the map. So again, the map will always load everything, and then you can turn on and turn off what you want to actually see. So because I'm an admin, I see all of your stuff. So when you log in a map, you will see the public projects, and then you will see any of your own projects. So none of you will likely ever see this much stuff. But this is also the map that like I generate to you, like the one that's on like the ACT Network website, the one that I had on one of my slides earlier. So it's kind of everything. And like, as a logged in user, I think you can zoom in like a little bit further than as a public user, but you still can't really see like high level detail.
I was just going to add that Kim regularly updates the map that's copied onto the ACT Network website, and you're free to use that in presentations and stuff like that. We keep that updated after each data push, so we know what the most recent 2 years of deployments.
Yeah, and you can also ask me, like, if you're like, hey, we're creating a project, we're trying to, you know, set up a project and write a proposal, and we want to be able to use the receivers in this area. You can say, hey, Kim, what receivers are in this area? And I can send you a map of those receivers in that area, or all of them, or kind of whatever you sort of need. So just ask me. I'm usually available. All right, so let's go set up a project, sort of. So if you want to start a new project, you're a new user, you go to add new project, and there's a bunch of fields. So sort of, we kind of touched on this, like Joy touched on a little bit, and Shannon. So OTN has created these like project metadata templates, and we differ from the other nodes because we have this landing website. So instead of you writing in a template, you get to fill out a web form, which can or cannot be sometimes annoying depending on the day. So it's exactly the same information, a name, you're picking a title, a short abstract, and it's kind of got some fields, you know, not to exceed certain characters or which characters you should pick, some site descriptions of where you're studying, dates, if you've got a website URL that you want to link to, who's the PI on that project, a point of contact, bless you. And so I will say there's a caveat so when you're filling out the PI information, we've created a drop-down list for the institution and affiliation. And this has been sort of a love-hate relationship with the website. So we've gone back and forth on a lot of these. And as you know, we all make typos. So we tried to mitigate that by giving you a list. But sometimes you're not on that list. So usually what I have people do is if you're not on the list, there is one for Mid-Atlantic Acoustic Telemetry Observation System or something wildly different than what you're in, or pick something and then say, hey, Kim, I couldn't put in my institution. Can you please fix that for me? And I can say, yes, I can. And then we'll fix it. And then species. So there's a very long list of species that, you know, our spellings are correct and things. If your species isn't on that list, then you would type it into this field and hit add. Project code. So this is your project code identifier. And I usually try to pick something that sort of vaguely, but sort of describes like projects. So like our array is circ1, and then our North Carolina array is circ NC. Kind of makes sense. But you can make that sort of whatever you want. It has to be numbers and letters only, no characters. And once you've decided, you're never changing it. Ever, right, Angela? It is a big problem. Like, we just did that for everybody to finally make things make more sense, and it was not fun. For Angela. And I'm sure you do. It was a lot. And then you're also going to pick like what type of data are you entering? So are you creating a tracker project, which means you're entering tag data only? Are you doing a deployment project, which is just a receiver array? Or are you going to do both, which would be a data project? And what you decide on that is totally up to you. Joy and I like to call it, you got lumpers and splitters. Personally, I like them split out, but that's just my own thing. But you can certainly put them all in one project. I usually try to tell people, like, think about how you would want to release that data then, you know, in a public format. Because if you're releasing the project, you can't pick what data within that project you want to make publicly available. It's either all or nothing. So usually, like, if you don't care if people know anything about your arrays, then you should just create an array project and keep your tags separate, which I think is why it makes sense to do it that way. And then there's just some other things you can fill out. Not all of this stuff is required. You can add pictures, which is great. Sometimes I like getting photos of you guys doing work because then I can use them for the presentations. Like, some of the photos I feel like we've been using for like 5 years and I'm getting tired of them. So send me new ones. Mike sent me one and it was up there this week. So if you've filled this out that you think is complete, but you did not complete it, you'll then be reverted back to the top, and it should tell you that you missed some required fields, which are then highlighted in red boxes. Species, though it doesn't tell you, but species, like a species is definitely required. And sometimes this gets a little, like, it doesn't really, like, the website just doesn't quite jive with the species list or connecting to worms correctly. So sometimes I'll tell people, just select species and we'll fix it. Like, what species you select on here doesn't really matter for the database side of things. And that's not ever displayed like on your project landing page. So if you went through and created a project and it's went through and you've submitted it and you're like, oh, actually, I want to say something different. All of that is changeable. We can edit that at any time, as many times as you want. But again, the only thing you can never change is the project code. So think about that for a few minutes before you just type something in. All right, so we're going to pretend that we created a project. Let's see here. So I'm just going to go into our circ array project. And we're going to talk about these fields at the top. So edit this project is exactly how it sounds. So again, you can edit all of these fields, but you'll notice you cannot edit the project code. You can always add photos or things like that. And then once you're in the edit project, you can go to project permissions, which is where you would add, so say you're the technician in your lab and you're creating the project for, you know, your boss and for other collaborators. You can then add those people so that they also have access to the project. Like I know Amy's done some of this for her group. And it works better if they're already a user. It does give you the option to add them as a custom user, but it adds them with an account that they can never get into, as Amy knows. So I would say have them become a user and then we add them. I'm also happy to do this for you, but essentially you would type in the email account that they use to, sign up for their Matos account. They would add them, and then you could click sort of the level of detail of which they have access to. Do they have access to edit project details, submit data, or can they download data from that project? And you can sort of add that, make changes. The other tab up here is project visibility. So this is one of the public projects that you can find on your map. But if you created a project initially, this is what you would have. So the only researchers, only investigators, and only custom users, you can kind of ignore. Essentially, depending on what you register your account as, because when you create a new account, you sign on as like a PI or a researcher, or PI or a researcher, and then that would, if you're that type of user account, you could see a different map with maybe like one more receiver group than another. But this is where if you wanted it to be viewed to anybody, you would hit all public, and now it becomes a public project. But the only way to make it a public project is to actually go into project visibility and hit that button. Otherwise, no one can see it except for the person that created the project, anybody on that list of project permissions, me, and OTN. Well, I suppose you guys can't even really get into the website, but you can see stuff on the back end. Any questions on project stuff? Right.
You and RPS.
Oh, yes, yes. RPS is our web people.
I don't know.
Yes, good point. Yeah.
I'm curiosity, does that generate a text file for you, or what is?
Nope.
How do you get that? Like once you do that, what's the format you actually submit it?
I don't get it. It goes straight into it goes straight into our node database. To Angela's pain sometimes. Yeah, I don't know how that part works. So in our database, so we have essentially two sets of databases. One is called Matos, which is the website side, which reads in sort of this information. And then the other one is the Act Matos, which is the node side. So that's the meat of it. That's where all of your data is sitting and living and existing. And then those two talk to each other to transfer this project metadata.
Cheat if your users still have access to they submit data, and it will only be the project check and have access to.
Yeah.
Everyone has access to everything.
So I don't know why it does that. I can't quite figure it out. I think it might be, so when you go to submit data, you go to the submit data page. This is also where the project templates live, so you can download those. You can also ask me for them. But when you go into your projects, you'll never see this long of a list, hopefully. You should see only your projects that you have access to. But I think sometimes when projects are listed as all public, I think those get put on this list. So you're seeing more, which makes it a little harder when you're trying to upload data to a project and then you've got to scroll through a list to find your own. If you happen to upload it to the wrong project, just let me know. It's fine. We can fix those things. Everything is fixable. Except for the project code. That was a one and done deal. Yeah, and then while we're in here, then you would just go and then you select the type of data. Look, Mike, it says VRL file. Select the type of data that you're uploading. And
Doesn't say.
oh, that's right. Yes. This, what you hit here, does not matter to me. I don't care. It gets used for nothing that I care about. It's almost for yourself. However, Mike's gonna tell you why it matters. Maybe. Are you talking about that?
Sure. So you actually.
I mean, later. You're gonna talk about it later.
Tell me on the spot. Okay.
No, you don't have to talk about it now. That's part of your presentation later, I was assuming. All right. So let's go and look at some of those project metadata templates. Oh, I guess one other thing I should touch on, because I feel like a lot of you always ask me, I don't know if it loaded. So when you're loading data through the submit data page and you've selected all the files you're going to load, you'll see saving on server. I don't need to edit. And it might stay there for a very long time. I mean, last night I was trying to upload the smallest file possible and it took like 20 minutes. So just wait it out. I don't know, walk away, go eat dinner, make lunch, walk away. That's why I also tell you, it's okay to just email me. If you've got like 50 VRLs, just send them to me some other way. It'll be better for both of us. So what you should have is this magic green box that says files are uploaded. If you never get that box, the next thing you should do is go back into your project and go to project files. Of course, I picked a bad one. So you would go back into your project files and you would say, oh, today, May 5th in 2020, I was uploading those VRLs. And yes, they did go through, or wow, they never went through. Why was that? And then try again. But it's a good way to go into your project to make sure that those files actually came through. Okay, now I'm really going to look at the metadata templates. Mm-hmm.
How do you prefer to get VRLs? Like, we often have people upload them one by one, and I was like, a zipped folder would be easier for both of us. Okay.
So you have the ability to upload as many files as you're willing to wait on the website to upload. It can be 50, it could be 1,000, it could be a lot. It will take a long time regardless. The larger the files, the longer it takes. It's fine. So you can do that. I cannot. So if you noticed when I first logged in and went to the like admin page of all the files that were loaded, those are all individual files. So when you upload 50 files, I have to download them individually, which is 3 button clicks per file, where you download it, save it, and then approve it so that it stays there. So that's why when I've said, please just email them to me, because then I can just zip them and it's like a lot less time. But that is hopefully something that we're going to fix someday. But for now, like, it was most important that it was you guys could batch upload because it's your time. Yeah, so we'll take a quick look at some of the metadata templates that we talked about. So OTN created these, and then Fact and us sort of adjusted them for like what we needed. And then again, if you are using Vembu, you don't even need to fill this out. You literally upload that into your project and we process it that way. So you don't even have to worry about this, which I feel like is a lot easier. So all of the templates have a data dictionary, which is a very useful resource that I highly recommend all of you look at. It clearly explains what is needed, what sort of format it should be in, what time zone it should be in, how many decimal places, if it's, in the required or like recommended. Like, I highly suggest you submit, your animal metrics, but It's, you know, these are for your records. They're not for me. They're for yourself. They're not for anybody else. They're for you. So if you want your records complete, I would say submit them. But again, they're not like a required field. And some of these things are just required so that we can help track and like check against your other data. The harvest date, which Shannon talked about. So if you've had tags that you put in an animal and then you took out of the animal and put in a new animal, I need that harvest date because one tag cannot be in two places at one time. Impossible. And then, so I had added to our templates, time zone columns. So yeah, it's this tag metadata. Because I was learning that even though the column says UTC, release date and time, I was not getting anything in UTC. So now I want you to tell me that you've put it in UTC or that you didn't, so that I can put it in UTC, but I'd really prefer if you did it. Because if you think about, you know, sure, we're on, you know, the East Coast, we're all using, you know, EST or EDT, but Canada isn't. We also work with Mi'kmaq and South Africa and the West Coast. So how can you report, say it's 9 o'clock and not all use one standard time zone? So that is why we went with UTC. Everybody has to use it. It's not just, you know, being a pain and trying to be nitpicky. It's just to keep it uniform as we're trying to collect consistent data. And yes, that is the time date format it has to be in. So year, month, date, T, hour, minute, second. There's no flexibility on that. That's what it is. Decimal place are GPS coordinates are decimal, yeah, decimals. Species information, we check this against the worms to make sure that it's actually the accepted common names and the correct spelling of your scientific names. So sometimes those have to get adjusted after they've been sent to me. Yes, we do need tag IDs and the full tag number. We like to have serial numbers because then we have 2 points to keep it independent. Sometimes we can make an exception for really old data, but then we would need some sort of other secondary unique identifier. So whether that's a name or a number or like a pit tag number, something. And then I'll just do a quick look at the receiver. So again, the receiver metadata is laid out exactly the same way. If you're using ARs and TXs that have the internal pingers and you use those and they're turned on, it's really beneficial for us to get those numbers. So that way we can say, no, that number is not actually a tag. It's actually just a transmitter or an internal, just a receiver. And again, same time and date format in UTC. And that's really important because when you're saying, giving us your receiver metadata, we're then looking at the detections on when you said the receiver was in the water and when it was out of the water. So if you've told me that you deployed it at 9 a.m., but actually it was deployed at noon and I've got detections from 9 to noon, we're just gonna like disregard those because it wasn't supposed to be in the water. So it's really important to have the times, which I know a lot of people, I mean, Cirque included, we didn't always write that stuff down long ago when we first started. Joy said that she didn't. But moving forward, it's good practice. So yeah, I think I will stop there. Is there any quick questions? Yes.
See our project page after you do a data update. Can we be confident that unless the file date is a new date, that there's nothing new to see there?
What do you mean as like the data that you've uploaded?
So you tell us that the data.
Like data
is
extractions?
now available, you go and look at our page, we see all these files from over the years. And there's a updated date, I believe, on the right.
Yes,
If those dates are not new. Can we be confident that we don't have to go back and look through all the other files that have older dates?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So you're talking about this upload date.
Yeah,
Yeah, so so again, these like choose files, this part at the bottom, you guys don't see on yours. I do. So this is where I go in to upload your data extracts, which is the report you get back after we've gone through a data push. So sometime in July of this year, I think it's fair to say, you'll be getting these back again. So like this project, you can see it had like this file was updated from the February data push, but some of these other ones were not. And that is accurate because that means I didn't upload a new version of that one.
and if there are multiple files that have the new upload date, it means something has changed. We need to go figure what it is.
Yes,
And the something is that you've got them organized by detection year, so even though like it's a new detection that was just added last month. The detection was actually from 2021.
yeah, so there,
2021.
yeah, so in your data, yeah, in your data extracts, there's a date last modified column, which that is the date that tells you if it's new. So essentially, I think those dates get the data push date. In the date last modified column.
It would be the last modified of the, when the data was, so it would be between last pushes.
Yeah, so some newer date would be like the new, anything that would be new.
Anything since the last push.
Yeah. So like in this case, we're coming up on a June data push, so anything that was loaded between February 15th and June 21st would be new things in your extract file versus anything else that had older dates.
I think the last push was February 16th. So yeah, anything since then.
Yeah. Yes, Joy.
Can I make a quick pitch? In the deployment form, there's a column for VRL file name, which is often not filled out.
Yes.
We find it really useful because it's often that even if you do a checks, I've seen it like you have the same number of deployment, same number of VRLs, it's actually, there are some VRLs that are missing and some extra ones that don't have deployment data. So it's a nice check for us so that we know that all the VRLs were loaded, because we have to go back and be like, hey, looks like you missed one. So I would just do a pitch that if you get the time, it also does get automatically put out in the move, but
Yeah.
that last column.
Yeah, it's a good way to say, hey, I don't think I have your files yet. Or because if you don't put it, I don't know what I'm looking for necessarily. All right. Well, so tomorrow I will pitch. Tomorrow's schedule is literally just a work along. So any questions, any things we want to work on, I'm here, all the OTN staff is here and they know everything. Joy will be here for a little bit in the morning, and a bunch of us are here to help and work through some of the stuff, or we can talk about some of this more. I had a little bit more to go through on my list, but we had some good discussion after Vembu that I didn't want to cut off. Yeah. Yes.
So maybe this is just when we're going through our workflow of downloading our receivers, we typically we don't put the station info when we first deploy the receiver, just so that we have a little bit more flexibility in the field. And then when we come back, we edit our VRL files. I think we've discussed how it's better for you to not have the edited file. Is there, if I'm only changing the station info, does that really make a huge, like, we could obviously go through and swap out all of our edited files for the raw detectants, but.
So because we are taking the metadata, we don't need your VRL files to say anything more than the stuff that they're collecting anyway, so like the receiver number and the tag numbers. We like to have them raw because then we can say they never got messed with. And if they're edited, I can't ever guarantee that you didn't edit something you weren't supposed to. So that's why we really try to get the raw version. We've talked about it, like I know you're going in and editing just stations, so you know, we've let those go through. But for us to like guarantee that the data has never been messed with, or like, oh, I'm, you know, changing tag numbers or messing with dates and things like that to, I don't know why anyone would ever do that, but who knows? We've really tried to just get the raw files, and that's this, you know, that's the reason why there's metadata, a metadata template that's separate than the VRO file. It's just, makes things track better. Yeah, I don't need station information at all in those files, because we're gonna get it all from the metadata.
But it is